Bone, today is commitment day for Damon Payne, big-time defensive tackle out of the state of Michigan. Here with Andrew Bone to talk about the commitment once he does make that a commitment, and that should be at 3:30 Central Time. We're here to talk about Damon Payne, the prospect. Bone, let everybody know what type of a prospect this is, and if he does decide on Alabama, how big that would be for the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, that's right. Damon Payne, one of the best defensive linemen in the country, currently rated as the number 3 defensive tackle in America by Rivals.com. Number 1 player from the state of Michigan. Alabama's been there pretty much from the get-go. He visited Alabama when he was just a freshman. He's been back a few other times, and Alabama's just done a tremendous job recruiting him kind of throughout the entire process, led by the recruiting efforts of Charles Huff, who's his lead recruiter, and also Freddie Roach, the defensive line coach. So, I think with Alabama, they've done a tremendous job recruiting him, up to this point, and we'll see here momentarily if he ends up picking the Crimson Tide, which I believe he will.
How the show will work, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for joining us. Please let us know where you're coming from in the comment box. If you're listening on our podcast, thank you so much for subscribing. Be sure and hit the thumbs up and like button, and we'll continue as the show goes forward. How the show will work is Andrew and I will kind of talk about this class leading up to it. We'll talk about Damon Payne a little bit more, and then once he does make his official announcement, we will talk more in depth about Damon Payne. Right now, Bone, would this be a big slam dunk for a new defensive line coach, Freddie Roach? You're talking about a guy who's new to Alabama or back to Alabama. He's a defensive line coach now. Would this just be a slam dunk for him in his early recruiting efforts at Alabama?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. Anytime you can get one of the best defensive linemen in America, and go into another state, go up, to the north and get the number 1 player from the state of Michigan. It's, tremendous. It's a huge recruiting win for Alabama if they're able to get him on board today. And, definitely, I'm sure Freddie Roach is going to be holding his head a little bit higher today, walking into the office if Damon Payne commits to them on, here in the next, about less than 10 minutes.
Bone, Alabama certainly the favorite today. Who else is kind of in the mix? I think you said earlier that Arizona State was also making a push for Damon Payne.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. There's not a lot of Big Ten schools that are really in the running for him. Never really showed much interest in the Big Ten. Had some interest in Ohio State early on, but that kind of faded. Never really was interested in Michigan or Michigan State. But some of the schools that he was interested in, kind of surprisingly, is Arizona State really made a strong move with him. In my opinion, probably ended up as the number 2 school in the race for his commitment. He's got a great relationship with the coaching staff out there. The only problem is he never visited Arizona State, so he might still visit Tempe here in the next couple of months. So we'll keep kind of an eye on that. If he does decide to visit Arizona State. But I know that he likes the coaching staff out there, very NFL-centric staff with, we know Herm Edwards as the head coach, Marvin Lewis also on the staff, Antonio Pierce, another former NFL player. So a lot of NFL connections there. So that's kind of his main reason for liking the Arizona State Sun Devils so much. But Kentucky, another school that was very high on his list throughout the whole process. Justin Rogers, who was the number 1 player in the state of Michigan last recruiting cycle, Kentucky ended up getting him in last year's recruiting cycle. So I think, that was probably a big reason why Kentucky was in the race for him and did a great job. But at the end of the day, I still think it's going to be Alabama.
Bone, let's talk about this class a little bit more, and how the show will work is we're waiting for Damon Payne to make his announcement. Once we do, we'll come back and we'll talk about that right here on BamaInsider.com. Thank you so much for being here. Be sure and hit the thumbs up and like button, or the subscribe button rather. That certainly helps the channel grow. Sincerely appreciate everyone who's out there watching the show right now. Bone, as we look at this class overall, so much momentum for the class of 2021, especially in the month of July. It's really been a big month for the Crimson Tide. Terrence Ferguson, James Brockemeyer, Tommy Brockemeyer, Kendrick Blackshire, Kadarius Callaway, all these guys jumping on board, Dallas Turner as well. So much momentum for Alabama. Why do you think this summer month has really heated up for the Crimson Tide?
Well, I think a big reason for that is a lot of kids, a lot of these guys who are waiting, until the summer, until maybe the fall to take some visits. They were really hoping to take some visits this summer, maybe go to some camps, and obviously the recruiting dead period kept getting extended. And then I think once recruits started realizing that they weren't going to be able to take visits during the spring, during the summer. They kind of decided a lot of them were ready to go ahead and make their decisions, even though some of them, there's some guys in Alabama's recruiting class right now that have never even visited Tuscaloosa. So, I thought that might be a little difficult to land some of these guys early on. But as we know, this is completely a different year than we've ever experienced before with COVID-19, everything going on. So, nothing should surprise us anymore. But from I guess late April, early May to this point, it's really been an unbelievable ride for Alabama. Going from in the 55, 56 team rankings range to all the way now to a top 5 recruiting class. It certainly has been a great run for Alabama. I think it's going to continue moving forward because there's still a lot of big names that are out there that they're heavily recruiting, a lot of key targets. And I pretty much said a few months ago, I said just wait, be patient. The majority of Alabama's key targets are still out there and have not made decisions. Just because this school may have 20 commitments and that school may have 18 commitments, doesn't matter. Most of those guys were not even Alabama targets. So when Alabama targets started making commitments, we started seeing a lot of those guys jump on board for Alabama. Now, if we would have seen a lot of those guys commit elsewhere, then you start worrying a little bit. But once we started seeing Alabama's targets make those set those decision dates and then make those commitments, we started seeing a lot of them announcing for Alabama.
Bone, how difficult of a year recruiting wise? You look at everything that has happened across America and the recruiting landscape, prospects not being able to take visits. And Nick Saban has done such a fantastic job building this class. We rewind and we talk about this every time we jump on, you and I. Think about the fact that in the month of March, he had 2 decommitments and Alabama just has 1 commitment. I think they're like 76 in the Rivals.com recruiting rankings. What Nick Saban has been able to do along with the staff, I think this is certainly a year where the Alabama brand certainly sells itself. Can you talk a little bit about that and how much that has played into building this class of 2021?
Well, I think top to bottom on the coaching staff, they've just done a tremendous job. Even though they can't have recruits on campus and visit with kids, they've been doing a tremendous job with these Zoom calls, Skype calls, whatever they've been doing. They've been able to really get everybody involved. From Nick Saban spending more time on Zoom calls, the strength and conditioning staff doing a tremendous job. A lot of the commitments right now haven't even met the new strength and conditioning staff. They've just been talking to them through Zoom calls. But I think they've made a tremendous impression on those guys. But I think if we would have seen Alabama, or I guess the entire country, if we would have seen it open up, if we would have seen kids being able to take official visits and visits during spring and summer, Alabama's potentially about to be at 16 commitments. I think they would be over 20 easily. I think they might even be up to 25 if all those visits were able to happen and the kids were able to take those trips during the spring, during the summer. I think most of the class would have been pretty much locked up heading into the fall.
So we're waiting on Damon Payne to make his official announcement. And once he does, we will bring Andrew Bone on and we will talk more about that commitment. Should be announcing here at 3:30 Central Time. And we will talk more about that on BamaInsider.com. I'm going to play a quick video on how to get free 30 days to BamaInsider.com. No better time to sign up for BamaInsider.com. And here's exactly how you get free 30 days completely free to BamaInsider.com. Here's how. Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Kyle Henderson of BamaInsider.com. This is how to get free 30 days on BamaInsider.com. First thing you got to do, go to BamaInsider.com and click on the top banner. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to create an account, email, username, password. The second thing you're going to do is confirm your subscription. Make sure that the promo code is entered right here. It says promo successful, roll tide. The third thing you're going to do is enter your credit card information. It has to be valid, and don't worry, you're going to get that 30 days free. As you can see, once you've added a credit card, you're going to get the promo code. As you can see right here, it says $0. After that, you got to make sure and cancel within that 30 days if you don't want to be charged that $9.95. But hopefully, you're happy with all the coverage on BamaInsider.com, so you won't need to cancel. Once you're a premium subscriber of BamaInsider.com, you can access Andrew Bone's recruiting board. You can jump on the Talk of Champions message board and have a great time with thousands of Alabama Crimson Tide football fans. We hope to earn your business at BamaInsider.com. Definitely think about becoming premium subscriber on BamaInsider.com. You can also join the loyalty club right here on BamaInsider.com. See the description box and click the button that says join. Super chats certainly welcomed. All you got to do is hit that $ in the chat bar area. We appreciate that. Thank you so much. I believe we already got a new member today. So thank you very much for supporting the BamaInsider.com staff. Bone, I'm going to let you step away real quick, do your thing. Then we'll definitely bring you back and talk more about Damon Payne once he does make his announcement. So talk to you in just a minute, buddy. All right, hold on, Bone. Let me see. All right, here we go. All righty. So, we're waiting on Damon Payne to make his official announcement. Now we'll bring back Bone and we will talk more in depth about Damon Payne and the type of prospect that Alabama could be getting if he does choose the Alabama Crimson Tide. Of course, he is forecasted by Andrew to choose the Alabama Crimson Tide. You're looking at a prospect 6'4", 295 pounds. I checked out his highlights, super athletic. I'll play some of those in just a minute. Out of the state of Michigan, he's the #1 player in the state of Michigan. And just as I was saying with Andrew earlier, think about the fact that, Freddie Roach, who is the new defensive line coach at Alabama, could certainly, if he can reel in a prospect like Damon Payne, I think that would be monumental for Freddie Roach. And I'm curious to see how Freddie Roach works with the defensive linemen. And that's kind of more of something that we'll talk on team-wise. I was thinking about having another show to just kind of talk about team, because Alabama has had 2 practices now. Those are makeup practices from the spring. They had their first practice on Friday and they had another practice on Saturday. So I definitely have some team nuggets for you that I will drop on BamaInsider.com soon. But back to recruiting, Damon Payne would certainly be a monumental get for the Alabama Crimson Tide. In fact, let's check out some of his highlights real quick. Super athletic. And I was diving into those, the past couple of days and really checking out what type of player he is. He would be Alabama's second defensive lineman, along with Anquin Barnes, who's an in-state defensive line commit. So here's a couple clips of Damon Payne. This first clip, he's actually on the offensive line, if you can believe that. I think that showcases somewhat of his athleticism, but there he is, kind of with that swim move, jumping up to swat the ball down. Here he is playing interior lineman. Of course, he's a defensive tackle and really someone who can get to the football. Got some other clips as well. I think just getting him on board the Alabama, check that out. Just getting right to the backfield. If you're listening on podcast, go to YouTube and check this out, because I think these are great clips and they certainly paint the picture to what type of player Damon Payne is. He's a guy who is certainly can be effective. And I think that's what Alabama needs. We're going to bring back Andrew Bone in just a second. Bone, are you ready to go? In just a second. Looks like we have some news, ladies and gentlemen. So looks like the announcement has been made. Okay, here we go. All right. Looks like Damon Payne has committed to the Alabama Crimson Tide. We will bring on Andrew Bone and talk about it right now on BamaInsider.com. Bone, big pickup for Alabama, landing Damon Payne. You forecasted this. You saw this coming. What type of player is Damon Payne, and what does it mean for the Alabama Crimson Tide picking up a key defensive tackle target?
Yeah, huge pickup today for Alabama and Damon Payne, one of the top defensive linemen in the country, currently rated as the #31 overall player in the Rivals 100. So even though Rivals has not expanded its 5 stars from 17 yet.
Bone, sorry to interrupt. I think there's a little bit of static, so maybe unplug that mic and why don't we start again on that? So just kind of explain what type of prospect that Alabama is getting in Damon Payne. Sorry, I just want to make sure the audio is clear for everybody. We got time, so let's start again. Bone,
can you hear me better?
Yeah, we're good. Go ahead.
Damon Payne, one of the top defensive linemen in the country, rated as the #31 overall player in the Rivals 100. So if you pay attention to Rivals, you know that Rivals usually has about 35 5-stars. Hasn't gotten extended from 17 just yet, but you can almost guarantee that Damon Payne is going to be a 5-star. And we'll call him a 5-star. #31 player in the country. He's a 5-star recruit. Huge pickup for Alabama on the interior defensive line. Tremendous athlete, 6'4", 295 pounds. It's Alabama's second defensive line commitment. Huge for Alabama to go into the state of Michigan and land the #1 overall player up there. So, huge pickup today for Alabama. Got to give a lot of credit to Charles Huff, who was his lead recruiter. You can't say enough about Charles Huff in this year's recruiting cycle. The guys that he's recruited, you've got to think he's the early front runner for Recruiter of the Year. Getting Damon Payne, getting J.C. Latham, Ja'Cory Brooks, Dallas Turner, flipping Devontae Smith from Ohio State. Just a tremendous year for Charles Huff so far. And also Freddie Roach, Alabama's defensive line coach, first-year defensive line coach, getting a huge commitment today in Damon Payne. So I'm very interested kind of moving forward what's going to happen. I think there's several guys that are still out there that are still in the mix for Alabama at the defensive line position. And this is a huge get today for Alabama and getting Payne on board.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about, just this defensive line unit. So you have Damon Payne jumping on board. You have Anquin Barnes, who we talked about earlier, the in-state commitment. Who are some other targets along with Damon Payne, Anquin Barnes? Kind of what do the numbers look like, and who else is on the board for Alabama at the defensive line position? Right now they have two. How many could you see Alabama taking in this class at the defensive line position?
Well, there are a lot of guys that are still out there that they're heavily recruiting. Now, some guys we probably won't see decisions happen anytime soon. And there's some big names that are out there that Alabama's kind of involved in that people may not realize. And two of those guys is Corey Foreman on the West Coast. Now, I said the other day I think it's probably going to be tough for Alabama to pull in Corey Foreman, but him putting Alabama in his top 7. You never know. There may be a chance if they can at least get him on campus for a visit, they may have an opportunity. JT Tuilamola, we had not really talked about him here lately, probably in the last few months, but I'm starting to hear a little bit of chatter that Alabama is very involved there, and he's really strongly considering a visit to Alabama this fall. So JT Tuilamola, one of the top players overall, top 5 overall player in the country out of the state of Washington, very interested in Alabama. So we're going to keep a very close eye on him moving forward. Know about Mason Smith, top player in Louisiana that has Alabama kind of in his top 4, top 5 right now. Those are some of the kind of the interior type guys that I think Alabama's going to have a real good chance with. Now, defensive end wise, Shamar Turner. Last week, Sam Spiegelman from Rivals.com, who does a great job covering the Louisiana and Texas region for Rivals, put in a future cast for Shamar Turner to Alabama. That would be a huge pickup. I don't see Alabama getting a commitment too soon. I think he's going to kind of wait it out, may decide to take some more visits this fall before making that decision. But it looks like Alabama has kind of moved ahead. Texas A&M for him right now. A couple other schools that are in the race for him, Georgia and LSU. May take some visits to those programs this fall, but as of right now, looks like Alabama's in the driver's seat for him. We all know about Monkel Goodwine, who we've talked about several times out of the Maryland area, another guy that's very high on Alabama. And as of right now, I'm predicting him to the Crimson Tide. So as of right now, you look at it, Alabama has 2 defensive line commitments in Anquin Barnes and now Damon Payne. As of right now, 100% future cast with Shamar Turner to Alabama, and also I think it's 88% future cast for Monkel Goodwine to Alabama. That would be a tremendous defensive line haul. Can they potentially get those 2 guys on board, plus maybe another guy? And like I said, there's a lot of options that are still out there. A lot of guys that are kind of taking their time, going to enjoy it. And I think Alabama's going to have a good chance, especially with the classes they're putting together. I think, even though kids don't make decisions based on other kids, I think when you look at Alabama's class, the momentum that they have, being a top 5 recruiting class in the country right now, it may start making some other recruits that may have had Alabama on the outside start looking at them a little bit more, because guess what? Elite recruits want to play with elite recruits.
Bone, excellent said. I think when you look at Damon Payne, and he just committed to Alabama, read more on BamaInsider.com. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Super chat certainly welcome for the staff. Thank you for becoming a loyalty member. If you already are one, right here on BamaInsider.com, plenty of ways to support the staff. Bone, as we dive in a little bit more to Damon Payne, do you feel that Alabama liked his athleticism? When I checked out his tape, I even saw him playing a little bit of guard. I saw him rushing the quarterback. What did Alabama necessarily like about a prospect like this? I think when you look at Alabama, they want guys who can get after the quarterback, who can be athletic. Certainly the new strength staff working with these guys to get them to that next level. Do you feel that they liked his overall athleticism? I certainly did.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I mean, you play on the defensive front for Alabama. You got to be extremely athletic. Got to know how to use your hands. You got to move up and down the line. You got to chase the ball carriers down from behind him, and he just does a tremendous job getting into the backfield. Just busting up plays. I mean, he's really athletic on film, and somebody that you got to expect that Freddie Roach, Pete Golding, they're going to love working with this kid moving forward. And I think Alabama just got an absolute home run in this pick. I say pick, it's almost like a pick, but it's a huge get for the Crimson Tide today. I mean, you can't stress that enough. I think Alabama felt like he was probably, and no doubt in my mind that they felt like he was one of the top overall players. Not just one of the top defensive linemen, but one of the top overall players on their recruiting board and in the country this year.
Bone, we talked about it at the beginning of the show. I mean, a monster month of July. What do you think has spurred this, monster month in recruiting for Alabama? Damon Payne is the 7th commitment to Alabama this month. I mean, why did Alabama just start rolling? When we started, it's the end of June, we started to see some recruiting movement, but for July has just Alabama's no other team, no other program in the nation has done what Alabama has done in the month of July. Why is that in your opinion?
Well, like I said earlier, I think a lot of kids were kind of waiting to see if they were going to be able to take visits during the spring, during the summer. Were they going to visit in June? Were they going to visit in July? Was there going to be maybe a small window in August where they could take some trips? Once that kind of got thrown out the window, I think a lot of these guys kind of decided, well, I don't want to go into the season not committed, so I want to go ahead and make my decision. A lot of these guys have been recruited for a long time, so they kind of have taken these visits. They've seen a lot of schools. They've done a lot of virtual visits and stuff like that. So I think a lot of guys, not really sure what's going to happen this upcoming season either. We haven't heard anything regarding visits this fall. Visits this fall may not even happen. So with the season coming up, I think we've seen a lot of recruits that have just been ready to go ahead and announce their commitments. And Damon Payne, a lot of these other guys, have jumped on board with Alabama this month, and it's been a big month. So we'll see if Alabama can get some more on board here pretty soon.
Bone, everybody likes to know, who just committed. And of course, the next question is, who is next? As we look at the recruiting landscape and we kind of look at the rest of July, which there's only a couple of days left in July, and we go into August, who else is on the clock? Who else could look to make a commitment? I know we've talked about the tight end Robbie Oots. We've talked about Kyrie Jackson. Who are some of the guys that are set to make announcements over these next couple of weeks, and who could be next to join this very talented class of 2021?
Yeah, the only commitment right now that we're expecting that a guy that has a commitment date is Amarius Mims, the number 1 offensive lineman in the country out of Georgia. He's set to commit on August the 15th, so a lot of eyes will be on his commitment. But in terms of maybe somebody announcing here pretty soon for Alabama, 2 guys that I feel like are leaning that way and could announce here in the next couple weeks. I would look at Robbie Oots, tight end out of South Carolina. As we've mentioned before, he has it down to a top 2, Alabama and Virginia Tech. I really like Alabama's chances with him. And then Kyrie Jackson, Alabama's top junior college target. Big defensive back, 6'3", about 195 pounds. Certainly one of Alabama's top overall targets in the defensive backfield. Could potentially see him making a decision pretty soon. We were expecting a commitment earlier. Actually, this month. He was supposed to commit earlier this month. Decided to hold off because I think he was hoping to maybe take a few visits, but could potentially see him making a commitment here rather soon. And I like Alabama's chances with him as well.
Bone, I talked about this, I believe Tuesday or whenever we talked. I think we talked about it on the Corey Foreman video. Alabama recently just got new lockers. I drove by Bryant-Denny. They're doing a fantastic job on Bryant-Denny Stadium. The Sports and Science Center, new strength coaches. How much does this play into this recruiting class? Because I think what Alabama is doing is certainly next level. A top tier program doing top tier things. And I think when recruits see that, I think it sells itself just like the brand does. But I think with Alabama adding these other elements, it's certainly going to take Alabama to that next level. And I get it. It's an arms race between Clemson, Georgia, the top programs in the country, but Alabama continuing to progress with their facilities. Don't you think that certainly helps the recruiting game and helps these coaches a little bit more when they're like, hey, come to Bama? Because not only are you going to get quality education, you're going to get to be playing in the SEC amongst the best, but you're also going to be having the best facilities, the best nutrition, and of course, working with the great in Nick Saban.
I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, like I said earlier, it's kind of top to bottom. I mean, every facet of the Alabama football program, it comes from Nick Saban. I mean, he wants the best of every single thing, with the football program, and that's just top to bottom from the strength and conditioning coaches. Everybody, the facilities, the weight room. I mean, everything's just going to be top of the line, and they continue to update everything almost every other year. There's something new being built, and definitely a lot of money being put back into the football program to make things better. And I think a lot of these recruits and their families, even this year may be a little bit different because they weren't able to get these kids on campus and see everything that was being built. Of course, a lot of this stuff was being built, so now they're starting to put it out there. Here's our new sports science facility. Check it out. Here's our new training room. I think guys like Jeff Allen does just a tremendous job at Alabama, and I think a lot of people are just blown away by the entire support staff that they have. It's not just the assistant coaches, not just the head coach, but it's everybody that's in the athletic department.
Big pickup today for Alabama landing Damon Payne. If you want to read more about Payne, go to BamaInsider.com. Plenty of ways to support BamaInsider.com for the great work that the staff does. Andrew Bone, he's been on fire this month, last month. So you can check out all his coverage on BamaInsider.com. Great ways to get free 30 days of BamaInsider.com. Start out a podcast, so definitely subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back at BamaInsider.com on the premium message board answering questions. And, of course, on Tuesday night, Andrew and I will be back talking more Alabama Crimson Tide football recruiting. Thank you very much for joining us today. Be sure and hit the thumbs up and subscribe button. Make sure and turn on all those notifications so you never miss when we drop news on the Alabama Crimson Tide. We're coming to you from beautiful Tuscaloosa, Alabama, where the Crimson Tide continue the strong month of July, pushing towards such a fantastic class. To read more about Damon Payne and to read more about Alabama Crimson Tide football coverage, go to BamaInsider.com for all your coverage. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Enjoy time with your family, and we'll catch you soon next time on BamaInsider.com.